It's 9 o'clock. I'm ready. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our workshop for July. Today is July 6th. Monday, July 6th. Oh my gosh. I hope everybody had a great time for the 4th of July. So I do call this workshop to order. Those present are Commissioner Hanks, Vice Mayor Luke, myself, Mayor McDowell, Commissioner Emmerich. We also have City Attorney, City Manager, City Clerk, and a lot of staff present. I do want to read into the record a email that I received from Vanessa, Commissioner Carasone, I'm sorry, that I received last night at 11:30. She said, I will not be attending tomorrow's workshop. I have a personal crisis I must address immediately. Thank you. Furthermore, I would like this read into the record so that the people do not believe I did not just show. Thank you. So I read it in the record as she requested. At this time, if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Hanks.
Correct.
Yes.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. So since this is a workshop, we don't need to approve the agenda, so I'm just going to go ahead and see if there's any public comment. Vice Mayor.
That's been handed to me, but I believe there was a gentleman filling one out. So has it not been turned in? No.
All right, no public comment. So I'll go ahead and turn this over then to City Manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, I'm having technology issues right now. It's a little slower than I am. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Branco. As you know, that we had multiple meetings on the Myakkahatchee Creek project. Commission requested workshops to go over the resolution that was in place on purchasing lots, get some background on what's been spent, what hasn't been spent. We had this conversation fairly recently. We've gotten as much together as possible. Unfortunately, there may be some details that we're still working on, but I don't think they'll be relevant to what we talk about today. So we were able to get you as much information, I think, as we could. And if more details are needed on specifics, we'll work on those in the future. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Branco.
Good morning, Commission. For the record, Carrie Branco, Assistant City Manager. Just wanted to provide a little bit more of a briefing, historical context of what we're going to be talking about today. Going back to the May 12th meeting, after we had discussions about the purchase of the property on Jessamine, there was more conversation about what we're going to do with the remaining properties. So the Commission had asked that we kind of bring back information to consider and provide new direction on the remaining properties along the Myakkahatchee Creek corridor. And as you know, for the last several years, staff has been following the 2007 resolution to acquire these lots. There was a total of 505 parcels in this project, 433 of those properties, all of them being vacant, have been acquired, either through a direct sale, an exchange, or deeded to the city. The remaining 72 lots to be acquired include 15 parcels with structures and 57 vacant parcels. Funding for the acquisition of these properties was established in 2007 following the approval of the Myakkahatchee Creek Master Plan for the development of a passive Greenway corridor, including trails and other amenities. Funding for this project totaled $4,102,174 from various funding sources. The remaining project balance is $288,275. In your backup material, there's information regarding the 72 parcels that are remaining, their assessed value, property information if they're in Tier 1, Tier 2. Additionally, there is information in the backup on the resolutions authorizing the acquisition, along with 2015 minutes continuing the discussion on taking action for the properties along the corridor. Today, we are bringing back to you a presentation on the Greenway Master Plan summarizing the purpose and benefits. There will be also a discussion from the Planning Division on dissolving lot lines, consolidating lots, and the possible rezoning of lots to conservation. You would also ask that we include in the conversation the lots along Spring Haven to be reviewed for rezoning. And then lastly, we will have a discussion looking for direction from you on the order of priority for the remaining lots to be purchased along Tier 1 and Tier 2. And so we'll start off, and this is your workshop. This is for us to have a big conversation. So we're going to go in order of the agenda, but anytime if you want something different or if you want a discussion, we'll follow your lead. Because we're going to start with Sandy Funheller to do the presentation on the Myakatchee Creek Greenway Master Plan.
Good morning. For the record, Sandy Funheller, Parks and Recreation Director. Today, I'm going to just give you an overview of the Myakatchee Creek Greenway Master Plan. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with it, but it was from back in 2007. So we'll just go through and highlight some of the key points in there. The Greenway Master Plan is a roadmap for the city of Northport to develop and implement a greenway corridor to protect and optimize one of its greatest attributes, the Myakatchee Creek. The Greenway, as planned, extends from the environmental park on the north end to US 41. The Greenway Master Plan meets the city's strategic objective to expand and improve accessibility to greenways and blueways connections. Some of the benefits: preserve critical environmental lands and habitats, protect the waterway's water quality, provide a linear parkway with passive and semi-passive activities, minimize encroachment into the creek's floodplain, create wildlife corridors, provide education opportunities to the community, and incorporate flood protection features. This is an overview of the overall plan, environmental park at the top, US 41 at the bottom. The concept plan that goes with the Greenway was developed and presented to the public in January of 2007, and then it was finalized and accepted by the City Commission in April of 2007. Commission also approved resolution number 07R-11 in April 2007 to authorize and direct the acquisition of platted lots and tracts by purchase, donation, or exchange for the Myakatchee Creek Corridor project, subject to certain conditions. The city's comprehensive plan supports this plan by placing an emphasis on the acquisition of the first 2 tiers of platted lots on each side of the creek, referred to as Tier 1 and Tier 2 lots. The final master plan was adopted in December of 2007. There's 3 concept plans, A, B, and C, that were developed for the Greenway. A hybrid of concept plan A and B and concept plan C was approved by Commission for future development of the Greenway. In the Tier 1 properties, passive activities that are shown in Concept Plan A and Concept Plan B are planned within the lands adjacent to the creek, except for any improvements that would be at main trailheads such as the Environmental Park, Oaks Park, or Butler Park. Activities would include things like walking, hiking trails, scenic areas, footbridges, educational and historical interpretive signage, and benches. In the Tier 2 properties, the activities are expanded a little bit in line with Concept Plan C, and they allow for more activities such as a bicycle trail, exercise stations, picnic tables, and gathering areas. This is Concept Plan A.
Can you point out what the differences are in these as you're going through them?
Thank you.
I mean, they kind of sort of look the same to me, so if you'll...
They are pretty much the same. It's just the type of activities that are allowed in each of them.
Okay.
So whereas in right next to the creek, it's very passive where, for example, there's benches, but there's not picnic tables because they don't want people to gather. So then when you go out to Tier 2, then you have more of a picnic table for a gathering to come together, but none of it is any structured recreational activity that would take place on the linear parkway. And this also does refer to some parks that as you go through that were not developed. They were part of the concept plan. There's a Pan American Park, there's a Greenwood Park. Those were never developed, but they were part of that original concept plan along the Greenway. Concept Plan B, it's showing you some of the, it shows you the existing parks, the existing bikeway area, canoeing access points that were planned. It did call for some swimming areas originally, and of course those are not being recommended for obvious reasons. Concept Plan C, and so this one allows a little more activity. It shows it could be a horse trail, a bicycle trail, a primitive camping area, fishing area. It does say swimming, but we will not be doing that. The phasing, the Greenway Master Plan, it was planned to be implemented in 2 phases, and phase 1 represents the development of a passive Greenway corridor in Tier 1 properties along the waterway, which include the low impact activities. Phase 2 represents the development of additional activities landward in the Tier 2 properties. The Greenway Linear Park, which is Project P10 MCG, is for the construction of a 1-mile trail section within the Greenway that extends from Price Boulevard to Appomattox. This is the first planned improvement for the Myakatchee Greenway. Marsh Creek Development contributed $141,646 towards the construction of the 1-mile trail that was received in 2018. And then per commission direction on June 4th, there was a consensus to hold off on the project until next fiscal year due to an anticipated decline in the amount of surtax collected. This is showing where that 1-mile trail would be between Price and Appomattox. Any questions on the master plan?
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Can you go back one slide to start with?
This one or another one?
There's not anything.
There we
Yes,
go.
that one. It popped up finally. The green area from the creek, I see where the creek's at, and you go back and it's all wooded and everything. How many tiers are in that green area?
I don't believe, and I would have, maybe Public Works would have a little more information on this. I don't believe any of these were considered Tier 1, Tier 2 properties that needed to be acquired. I believe all that acquisition was from the environmental park to Price Boulevard. And then at this point, this is city-owned property, is my understanding.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, but what I'm trying to find out is the space. Could you put 2 tiers in that width? What I'm trying to do is find out where the trail is going through.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're talking about a trail in Tier 1, isn't that like a 80 by 125 lot? The first tier, and then the second tier is another 80 by 125?
I don't know if these lots were platted that way. I'm not sure.
So, well, do you have any idea what the depth of that is from the creek over to, it looks like Heron Creek Development? How wide it might be?
I don't. I'm sure it's on the plans. We can get that information.
Okay, just curious because we've got a trail coming in that looks like it might be in a Tier 2 or maybe even a Tier 3 depth from the creek.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good
Elizabeth
morning.
Wong, Stormwater Manager, for the record.
Good morning.
I actually was involved in designing that.
Thank you.
And it's actually not a Tier 1, Tier 2 lots. It's not lots. It's a
Correct.
tract of land abutting up to Heron Creek. So it's pretty wide, and we own on either side of
Okay,
that.
instead of calling it Tier 1, Tier 2, how many feet, yards, is from the creek to the Heron Creek development? I just want to know the depth of it in
it's
comparison
a
to
lot more
the
than-
depth of what
It's
a
lot
1
more-
and a 2 would be.
varies, but it's a lot more than 150, than the standard lot. The width varies throughout the whole alignment. Between the natural creek there is very difficult to see. It's in the wooded area and it's tiny.
Okay,
What you see
let
there
me-
is
Let me
bypass.
restructure my question for you particularly because you were in on the design. When you laid out that trail,
Yes,
is that in compliance to what the Greenway plan was. Because, you know, there are certain activities you can do in tier 1, there's certain activities you can do in tier 2. Is that compliant
Yes.
to that? Okay,
Yes, Commissioner.
all right. And it's just the trail? There's not benches or anything, it's just the trail?
There's no
I believe
benches.
there's a couple benches, but there's not picnic tables for gathering.
There's no exercise equipment,
No.
just a bench if somebody wanted to sit and rest? Okay. Now go back one other slide, please. I need some clarification. I'll go back to another question that I asked. Isn't tier 1 just a regular lot? And then tier 2 is the second lot back from,
Correct.
okay. What I was trying to understand in all the backup material, well, the Jessamine property that was purchased, how many tiers are in front of that road? And then you've got the Jessamine property. Is there 2 tiers before you get to that road? Or was that structure actually in tier 2?
Maybe if you put up the map, it might, the map that was,
Commissioner Carrie Branco, for the record, the property was in tier 2.
Okay, so the road divided tier 1 and tier 2. Okay, that makes more sense, because it looked like there was more lots or developments or whatever being added to what was in originally, but there's not, is there?
Near the Jessamine property, you mean? Or
No, from the
just-
original lots that were in this plan, nothing else has been added to it, correct?
No, nothing's been added.
Just tier 1, tier 2, nothing more?
Correct.
Because I was seeing it sounded like trying to add in other things. So it's just strictly tier 1, tier 2?
No, I think the only thing that was suggested to be added in was the Spring Haven lots, because it created a connection to Little Salt Springs, that wildlife corridor. I know there was discussion at some point about that being a connection, but that's never been part of the Greenway plan.
Right. Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have in regards to that. Of course, there's things that I would like to see us think about, but I'll discuss that later. Thank you, Mayor.
welcome, Vice Mayor. Does anybody else have any questions regarding this presentation given so far? Seeing that there is no others, I have a couple questions. Since there's the tier 1 and tier 2, and tier 1 seems there's only 3 properties that are still needing to be purchased. While I appreciate the map that was provided in the backup, can you put the map up and show me exactly where those 3 properties are? I know that you've outlined it, but it's really hard to see. Which 3 on the tier 1 lots need to still be purchased? I'm sorry, tier 1 lots. Yes, ma'am.
Nita is working on it right now. She's going to be controlling the maps and pulling up those lots. Just give her 1 minute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to find the best one to show.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Nita. It's amazing how quickly you do this. Okay, so there.
So the first one is this piece of property, which has the home on it. This is one of the vacant lots. And that is up in the northern portion. I was just looking for the other piece. It's right here. And this is the other house. There's two houses. Let me zoom it in a little further so you can see them. There's two houses, which are the two pink ones, and the yellow one is the vacant.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So these tier 2 lots, without it having a conservation, and I'll get into more of the question later, can they build right now on those tier 2 lots? If you owned a piece of vacant property, can they put a house on those 2 tier lots right now?
Yes, they can build on those tier 2 lots.
Is there any prohibitions, whether it be floodplain, whether it be like FEMA requirements? Is there any restrictions on building on those tier 2 lots?
I can't answer that question. They are buildable lots, but yes, they are in the floodplain, and they're either in the FEMA Zone A or AO, and there are some restrictions with that.
Good morning. For the record, Nicole Galehouse, Planning Division Manager. You could build on those. There are several layers of restrictions and extra considerations that would need to take place. Within the city, they are most likely in one of our conservation restricted zones, which there's 3 zones for that purpose, and Nita has those pulled up for you. So each one of those has a different set of protections that fall within it. If you're within those, the septic system has to be, I believe, aerobic. So they have to go through a different process with the health department in order to build there. And then if there's floodplain, that would have to be compensated for. They would have to go through FEMA regulations for that as well, if that's applicable to the property.
So that whole pink area is what is considered the conservation zone area?
Conservation restricted zone, yes.
And that's zoned that way already?
It's not a zone, it's an overlay. It's an overlay zone. So it goes on top of whatever the normal zoning restrictions are and places additional restrictions on the properties.
That's listed in the ULTC.
Yes, it's in Chapter 9.
Okay, thank you.
So I know we had talked about adding a conservation overlay to tier 1 and tier 2. That's not necessary because it's already there? I'm confused.
I'll cover a lot of this in my presentation,
Okay.
but I'm happy to.
No, that's all right. We'll wait till your presentation then. So you know where I'm going with it, so we'll wait till the presentation. I just wanted to get an understanding about the tier 2 building, if you can or you can't, so.
Yeah, the tiers when it comes to building are irrelevant. Like planning, if somebody came in, or building, if someone came in for developing one of those properties, tier 1 and tier 2 is non-existent in our world. That's a commission construction as far as acquiring the properties. What we look at is the conservation restricted zones.
Okay, all right.
So I'm a little bit confused how this meeting's going. There's multiple presentations then? All right, so what are we supposed to be doing for this first presentation?
I think we'll just hear them and then go from there and ask our questions, because I have a feeling they're all going to kind of meld together.
Yeah, this was just, there was a request to bring back information on the master plan, so we tried to just give you an overview. So you know, if you weren't familiar with it, you've got the information.
Thank you. I do have one other question, and this is relative to the tier 1 and tier 2. I noticed that some of them are owned by the city of Northport. Some of them are owned by the Road and Drainage District. Who made the determination that this lot is owned by the city of Northport and the lot directly next door, same size, same makeup and everything, is owned by Road and Drainage? How did that come about?
Probably so they can access.
Mayor, I'm going to have Julie Belia come down and have a discussion to answer that, but back in the 80s, I don't know if I've got my date right, there was a consent order through a lawsuit from General Development that I believe deeded us several of these properties to the road and drainage district. I have Julie expand on that.
Thank you,
bit.
Carrie. For the record, Juliana Belia, Public Works Director. Ms. Branco is absolutely correct. In the early 80s, there was a three-party agreement with the State of Florida Department of Environmental Regulation, which was before DEP, that was the original name, and the City of Northport and General Development Corporation, and also the Water Control District. So as part of that agreement, many things were happening. General Development Corporation was, they thought that they were in compliance with the state laws to qualify for exemptions to dig a lot of drainage ways, canals, and all sorts of things all throughout the city. They found out differently. So as a result of that, there was a three-party agreement, and the DER required General Development to do many, many things, one of which was to give land to the then Northport Water Control District, because at that time, the Northport Road and Drainage Maintenance District was not yet established. So they did that, and then years later, when the Road and Drainage Maintenance District formed, and we actually assumed the Water Control District, we also received all those properties. In addition to that, there's several wetland properties that we were granted. So it was either for our operations or for these properties, it's going to be for our operations. But we also have various wetlands throughout the city as part of that agreement. That's how we got them.
So then how did the city of Northport get title to some of those properties?
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, we can look up each individual one, but most of them were purchased.
Yeah.
Most of the ones that are in the city of Northport name were purchased through one of the various sources that are listed in here.
If they were purchased using the DEP grant, not grant, litigation settlement, would they be titled as City of Northport, or would they be titled as Road and Drainage?
I want to say that they would be titled City of Northport, but I can't give you a blanket answer to everything that happened throughout the history of it.
A lot of history.
There is.
Hopefully somebody's keeping track of all that, because it's, seems like a big old web of.
It is.
I just have one final question for the Greenway plan. Because we approved from Price to Appomattox, that 1 mile trail thing. In that plan, then from Price over to the environmental park, are you thinking of doing something there too, or is that just going to be left natural?
So it's a
plan.
combination, it's a combination of trail systems. It depends on whether it's in Tier 1 or Tier 2. Nothing has been planned. We just have the master plan and the concepts, and if we were going to move forward with something, that would require, obviously, commission input, and we'd have to get somebody on board to design something.
Because in my thinking, the more north you go, the more flooding that you have in the floodplain. And so as we were discussing the floodplain plan and all this kind of stuff, I think that Greenway plan has to be considered also, or in reverse. You have to look at that plan and think of the floodplain. So I wondered if you were going to do a trail in the 1 mile, but then leave the rest of it for basically the flooding.
Basically, the concept plans have a mix of that. So some of it is primitive trail, although it does need, if we're going to promote it as being a primitive trail for people to get on, there needs to be some maintenance to it. Right now, that's not being done. They're just trails that have been created over the years.
Right.
So it's a combination. So this way, when we have this 1 mile trail between Price and Appomattox, that provides an opportunity for people that could not get on a primitive trail to experience the Greenway in a different part of it.
Right. But the plan itself does allow for trails in that longer stretch
Yes,
if so desired in the future.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one follow-up question about this master plan. And I'm glad Vice Mayor asked what the differences were because they were so small that I couldn't even see the difference. And I was wondering, this was approved, I think you said in 2007?
Yes.
So because back in 2007, hey, let's have a swimming hole or a swimming area or canoe and kayak launch areas, do we need to update this master plan to show that, yeah, these aren't happening?
No, I don't think you need to update the master plan. It's really just a roadmap to say this is an opportunity. This is what we can do. But before we would move forward with anything, there'd have to be several stakeholder meetings, commission input. We'd have to get somebody on board to actually design and engineer whatever it's going to be. Even if it's a primitive trail, you would want to know the lay of the land and where it should go. And so I think there'd be plenty of time for input to make sure it reflects what we want.
Look how long that 1 mile's taken.
Right?
And speaking of that 1 mile, I know we gave direction when we put that project on hold to come back with the consequences.
Sure.
Because there's an agreement that we signed saying, okay, you're gonna pay us the 141,000 and we're going to do.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure, is there timelines to do whatever everything is spelled out in that contract? And I didn't see any information in the backup
No.
about that.
I do have that, and it will be in some of the information that we're bringing back to commission as part of budget, the response to the different budget questions.
Okay.
But I did review the development order. Planning also reviewed it. So in that order, Heron Creek Development, they were required to either construct or contribute towards the construction of the path. They've contributed toward it. There is no deadline in there that applies to the city for the construction of it. The development order does expire in January of 2021. That doesn't impact us. The plans that we have for the trail, if the project continues to be on hold, the plans, since it went through the SDR process and was approved, that will expire in 1 year. So if we decide we're going to move forward, we're just going to have to go back through the SDR process and then see whatever surveys we need to redo at that point.
So the SDR expires in 1 year, like starting now, or 1 year, 6 months ago?
From when it was approved. It was recent. So I'll have to go back and get that date.
If I can just add to that, I don't have the specific date in front of me, but I believe there's an option for extension as well, for a 1 year extension.
To the development order?
Yes.
Yes, but I'm not sure if we can extend, we were talking about who can extend the development order because it is with Heron Creek, and I don't know that there's any purpose in them extending the development order. There's no active projects that they have right now. But I believe that there's special conditions that you have to meet, and then that can be extended by the city manager, is my understanding.
Be interesting to know when the SDR expires, so that way then we have all that information, so we can make sure we're making a prudent decision.
I will get that date and get that to everybody.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Does anybody else have any follow-up questions on this? Okay, go ahead, city manager.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Commission, as directed on May 12th, we are also bringing back a presentation discussion from the Planning Division on dissolving lot lines and rezoning the properties to conservation. Nicole Galehouse will be speaking about, including in the information with the creek properties along, as well as the lots along Spring Haven Drive. Thank you.
Thank you.
And before I do that, I actually was able to pull up the date. It's January 8th, 21.
That's the SDR.
That's the SDR expiration date, yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we wanted to go over the process and the discussion about how we preserve these lots long-term and what different methods we can go through to do that. And there were a few different topics that I was asked to discuss, and so that was the lot consolidation and the land use zoning conservation easement part of it. So a kind of brief timeline, the goal would be to acquire properties. If we do lot consolidation, that would come next. Then we would want to do land use and zoning, and then conserve, that's forever. So typically, when we combine lots, we see this most frequently with single-family lots when someone purchases a lot next door. And the goal of that is, there's a few typical goals for that. So tax benefits is one of them. When you combine the lots, the taxes are adjusted for that. If you want to build across the lot lines, you need to combine them in order to have it be a single lot and to affect where the setbacks are. And then privacy and buffering. A lot of times people want to combine the lots so that they can preserve them for buffers with their neighbors. There's often confusion with the lot combination process. The property appraiser has a process to combine lots, and that is for tax purposes only. It doesn't affect the legal status of the lots. So if you want to build across them or affect how they are in perpetuity, you need to legally combine those lots.
Would that be a replat?
A replat is one option. So for single-family lots, there's a few different ways you can go about doing it as long as something gets recorded with the clerk of the court. In a case like this or larger commercial subdivisions, larger pieces of property, we typically would recommend a replat, or you could do a vacation of the original plat. Replat's probably the cleaner way to do that, especially in a case like this where you have properties that are going to cross so many different plats. So it would be much easier to do a replat. On these particular properties along the creek and other areas where the city is also working on purchasing lots for conservation purposes, like over in Spring Haven and other areas, some of the issues you have are multiple ownership. As the mayor discussed, some of these properties are owned by the city of Northport and some of them are owned by Road and Drainage. So that would have to get resolved before we can turn those into one lot because the ownership would have to be accounted for with that. The other issue we have currently, if we were to want to, start combining some of these right now, would be the issues of gaps in contiguity. So we don't own everything. We own a lot, but we don't own everything. So until we do, that creates some difficulties as well. When we talk about conservation of the lots, there's a few things that I think have been discussed, one being conservation easements, and then the other being rezoning. So I'll talk about the easement first. A conservation easement typically provides protection of land, and that interest is given to a government or to a preservation agency in perpetuity so that piece of property can never be developed. It affects the property value, the taxable value, so it provides that benefit for the property owner as well, but the property owner typically maintains ownership of the property. Having an easement is a lesser right than having ownership of the property. In the case of these lots along the creek, we own these properties, so an easement doesn't really make sense for us to apply because we already have ownership, which gives us the full right to those properties. Rezoning would definitely be an option. We've started doing that with some of these properties, and I think we could definitely continue that in the future. I'd recommend waiting until all of the properties have been acquired so we're not piecemealing it. There are quite a few costs associated with a rezone, surveys of properties, legal ads, public hearings, notices to neighbors, all of that is in that. So we want to try to do that as few times as possible. We may also have to do land use amendments if the future land use is not conservation as well. So those two would need to go hand in hand. And then that would preserve the properties. Currently, I believe the ones that are along the creek that we have rezoned are recreation open space. And as part of the ULDC rewrite, we are getting rid of that zoning district and combining it with conservation. So this would fall into that category as well. And that's all what I have, so I'm here for questions.
Anybody have any questions on this? I'm sorry.
It
was well explained.
Yeah, it clarifies so much. I mean, this meeting is just clarifying so much to me. Having an understanding of why it hadn't been an easement or replatted or whatever in the past, so thank you.
I do have a couple questions. So the tier one, based on the three that are still needing to be acquired are basically north of Gadbois Avenue, which is north of 75. So what is preventing us from combining those lot lines south of there down to almost, even south of, down to Price Boulevard almost? Why couldn't we, because we own all those tier one lots. There's only the three in that little part north of that Gadbois and Tropicana.
Nita, can I switch it back over to you to see? I'm a visual person, so I want to see if I can. So along the creek, we certainly could. One of the issues is the ownership. So that would be something that we'd have to address is because there are different owners. It's City of Northport or Road and Drainage. The other, you wouldn't be able to combine them with the properties across the street because there's a road right-of-way there. And that's where we'd have to get in. If you really wanted to get rid of the road right-of-ways that are in between there at some point, we'd have to really get into the replat process.
But if we combine just those lot lines, then for tier one, and then because we have so many properties in tier two that are scattered throughout the whole length, why couldn't we do just the tier ones?
Again,
Besides the property line, I mean, the property ownership, I don't.
you could. I guess my question back to you would be what's the goal? In having it be single ownership, there are going to be extensive survey costs associated with that. And so it's definitely something we can do, but there would be quite extensive survey costs to have that done.
Speaking only for myself, the goal would be that future commission, future direction, future whatever we don't know is going to happen in 20, 40, 50, 100 years from now, that those don't get sold. That we keep it for the purpose that it was purchased and to preserve it and conserve it because of flooding. It's our drinking water. So there is some realistic ideas as to why we would combine those lot lines as to one, because then you would have to spend a lot more time, energy, and money to redraw lines at some point. Go ahead, please, ma'am.
I understand what she's saying, but with the economic conditions that we're in this year, it's not anything that I would propose looking into or expending money toward surveys at this point in time. Somehow, I think future commissions need to know this history. Maybe we could show recordings of this video to them as they come on board. But as far as doing something with the lot lines and stuff like that, taking on a cost this year, no, I can't Future, yeah, now, no.
Well, I agree, and I'm not saying to expend any cost right now. I think it would be in our interest to gather information to find out how much something like this would cost, just for the tier ones up to that one point. And if you move the map down, I can show you where that Gadboy Street is. It's right about where that blue kind of tips out. Up on the left-hand, the western side of the creek, there's a blue lot that's kind of shaped, right there is Gadboy's, yeah. So if you did it from Gadboy's south, all those are already purchased. You know, I don't know what the cost is. Okay, it sounds like it's expensive, but maybe it's not until we find out what that expense is, a dollar amount, even if it's a educated estimate as opposed to, well, it's gonna be expensive.
Absolutely. We can reach out to some surveyors and get some ballpark.
So what
Figures for
would
that.
they have to survey? I mean, if we own the property, we've already got those surveys done. So what would they have to do?
They have to do a new survey in order to combine them into a single lot. And we'd have to do a plat. We'd have to do a new plat.
Okay,
So
For
you would
each
need-
property and then combining them, so you got a lot of lots.
If we have the existing surveys, we wouldn't necessarily need to redo that, but we would need to do a survey for all the lots that we want to include in a replat, and then we would also need to have an engineer draw the plans for a replat.
I'd be curious to know how much something like that would cost. Obviously not for this year, we're in the middle of budget, but to get an idea of how much something like that would cost, I think would be in our interest to have that.
We can certainly get you a ballpark estimate of those costs. The other cost or time frame that's not considered in that is legal costs of what it would take to figure out how to get the ownership transferred to one owner. Because the lots that are owned by the Road and Drainage District were transferred to them under a consent order.
And that's the other thing is,
So
can they, because they were sold to, well, not sold, given to whatever method, to road and drainage for a specific purpose?
That's what we need to find out.
Can they, is that like into perpetuity? Is that for the next 100 years? You know, we don't have all that information. It may not be legally possible. I don't know. But from what I'm hearing, you guys don't know either.
no, we don't. And that's one of the purposes of this meeting is, do you want the investment of time made to try to figure that out? Because it will be extensive.
At this point in time, personally, what'd you
That's
say?
what I'm asking.
Commissioner Emmerich, what'd you say?
No, that's what I was gonna ask on how the time was going to be spent.
Yeah, and time is money when
Exactly.
it comes to staff. And we've got enough projects hot and heavy right now. I don't know as this one needs to be placed within at this point in time.
I'm totally in agreement with you.
And I agree, but at the same time, my concern is 25, 50, 100 years from now. Because if we don't do something to protect this, we don't know what's gonna happen in the future. And it seems like it's been the goal of past commissions since 2007, 2000, whenever, to purchase these properties. It seems the goal is for conservation, but I've also heard rumors that it's also for development of other things. And that's just rumor, and I know you take it with a grain of salt. But if that's some of the rumor that you hear, it may have a shred of truth to it. And if the real goal is to conserve and preserve, especially our drinking water, that's what we need to do. So, I agree, can't do anything now. Time is money, money is time, and we don't have either of it right now. But it is something that we need to keep on the horizon. And in order to keep it on the horizon, we have to have this additional information. That's all I'm trying to get at. So I would just like to see if we can get a consensus to have staff bring back an estimate of how much would it cost for these surveys? How much time are we looking at? And can road and drainage even have those lots be given to the city of Northport or vice versa? And I don't mean given,
Transferred.
transferred, however, that would have to take place legally.
The last one's probably the biggest, probably takes the most time to figure out. And I'm not gonna speak for the city attorney, but it would be a lot of legal research. I have no idea how long that would take.
I cannot agree with the consensus at this point in time. For it to come up as a agenda item or a discussion in the future, fine, but to tack it to their list currently this year, I can't agree with it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Hanks?
Yeah, well, since I won't entertain the actual doing of this and the costs associated to it, I just don't see the purpose in wasting staff time to do it at this point. As the Vice Mayor stated, something that's done in the future, obviously will be after my time here, will be up to the board at that point. But since I won't entertain the costs associated with it, I just don't see the point in getting the information that's been in the staff time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Emmerich?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. If we're not moving forward on this project, there's no reason to get the information and tying up staff time at this time. Maybe we can revisit this next year and we're in a better situation. That might be the time, but right now is not the time. I do believe it's important and we need to work on that, absolutely. But I think that our staff is very over-inundated in stuff that's going on right now, and I don't want to add to their burden.
Thank you. So the consensus failed 1-3. I was in favor of it, obviously. So, thank you very much for the conversation on it. And I think there's other presentations, correct, City Manager?
No, there are no other presentations after the discussion on the Greenway Master Plan and the lot consolidation and rezoning. What we're going to be looking from the commission from the May 12th meeting as new direction for the remaining properties that are to be acquired along the corridor. So in the backup, included in that in the 2007 resolution, 2015 minutes, and then also some revenue information as far as the summary of the spending from 2000 to current, as well as in the backup regarding the remaining parcels, including their legal description, their assessment, and also the ad valorem and non-ad valorem revenue loss if we were to purchase those properties.
Does anybody have any questions on the financial part of it
Financial part of,
that she was just talking about?
no, but I do have question, discussion, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, can I ask a question? The lots in the tier 2 areas, since tier 1 is closest to the creek and then you have a road, and then tier 2, what is the ultimate goal and purpose of having those tier 2 lots? Because, and this kind of goes back to Vice Mayor's original question, how far is the creek to where that road is? And I know it meanders, but how many feet is it from the creek, the center of the creek, to the road?
Mayor, we have several maps we can put up, none of which I think provide the distance between the homes and the tiers to the creek, but can also provide overlays of what the FEMA maps look like and what they're showing. I mean, originally from the goal of reading the resolution and the minutes from 2015, it was coupled with the presentation Sandy gave to purchase the lots to provide passive and active trails along the corridor, a Greenway corridor, as well as preserving the area to reduce the potential of flooding in the city. I know Elizabeth, I believe, is still here. She could probably speak more to that because it kind of ties into her big slew study that she provided to the commission back in December. But to answer the why,
Yeah, my why is more specific to tier 2. I totally
Right.
understand tier 1, I totally understand that there's going to be some passive trailness along the creek to tier 1. But what is the purpose of tier 2? Because the trail is gonna be between tier 1 and the creek, not anywhere near tier 2. So I'm at a loss to understand, what is the purpose of purchasing tier 2?
Comp plan. Anything, Nicole, on the comp plan or anything that we wanted to talk about in regards to that? Nia, what were you?
You have Elizabeth
It's in the,
coming.
it's in the comp plan. It is.
Whatever's in the comp plan has to have a reasoning for it,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
I would imagine Elizabeth knows why it was placed in there.
Commissioner Elizabeth Wong, Stormwater Manager for the record. Tier 2 is definitely further away from the creek.
Can you scooch over a little bit? Because
I'm
they
gonna wear
can't
my
hear
mask.
you.
A little harder. Okay, so say a lot, the tier 1 lot's about 120, 150 feet deep, right? Then you've got the road, which is about 20-something feet. So the tier 2 lot will start roughly about no less than 200 feet away from the banks of the creek. Okay, you're measuring from the bank of the creek. Now, I can propose a few good reasons for acquiring tier 2. One is that most of tier 2 lots are in the current FEMA flood map zone AE. Okay, so it will flood, and a lot of them will flood even in a 10-year storm, or less, of course, in a 100-year storm. Now, you are allowed to build in that tier 2 area. When they build the lot, you know, they always bring in a lot of fill, because there's mostly to get the house out of the higher than the floodplain, okay? And also to have the gravity for the sewage to go into the septic system, which of course have to be mounted higher because of the groundwater table being so high there. So the lots tend to be pretty high. You've seen it's like 4 to 5 feet higher. Now, when they bring in all this fill in the floodplain, the AE, zone AE, they're occupying space, that dirt. So the flood water has to go somewhere else. So that flooding is going to spread out more. Now, for these single-family lots, our code does not require them to do floodplain compensation. Floodplain compensation means if you bring fill into where the flood waters is, you have to create another area for the flood waters to go. But for single-family houses, lots, doesn't have to. Commercial and residential subdivision, yes, and industrial. But for single-family platted lots, which is along the creek, so therefore, if you're building on tier 2, you're gonna be filling the floodplain. And of course, you know, you're gonna have people with, you know, the fertilizing, and then the septic system. It's not 100% clean water coming out of the drain field, right? And especially when the groundwater table is so high. So there's that water quality issue that we wanna try to do better on by protecting tier 2. In addition, if it floods, then of course we have to use our resources, our fire rescue, to rescue people and get them out. So there's that issue. Then floodwaters along those roadways eats up the roadways over time. We've tried to fix them, but over time there'll be maintenance costs. So if we buy those lots, then we don't have as much call out from operations to address all these needs.
So if we purchase these tier 2 lots, what is gonna happen to the road that's between tier 1 and tier 2?
I would defer Julie, but we will need some access to maintain that area or to get to the creek. So some of it could be kept, some could be vacated.
For the record, Juliana Belia, Public Works Director. Many, many years ago, it was decided that that road is not going to be, it's gonna have to be taken out. There'll have to be a form of access to that area, but you can't really have that road there and have that area protected. So that road will be removed. In fact, we have not resurfaced it, and we have not improved it in many years because of that, but that road is going to be removed. Yes, ma'am.
So how can we, since we have the conservation overlay, and I think this was going back to what I was alluding to at the beginning with my questions, how can you conserve the tier 1 lots to prevent the building of them? We have this conservation open space, that purple map, if you could bring that back up. So the tier 2 lots are within that, but how can you make just those tier 2 lots even more restrictive than that whole big pink area?
So really, the city ownership of those properties is the most restrictive component of it. Even in the conservation zoning district, there's provisions under which a single-family home can be built. And that's something that we can address in the rewrite if so desired. But ownership is the biggest way the city can protect these properties.
But we don't have the money to buy those lots. Even though it says the assessed value is 1.8 million, we know it's going to cost a lot more to buy those lots. It's not the fair market value. What's the fair market value?
That would require an appraisal on
Thank
each one of the
you.
lots.
And if we don't have staff time, money, or resources to gather information, how do we have staff, money, time, and resources to purchase these 2-tier lots?
Absolutely, sorry, I misunderstood. I just misunderstood the question.
That's okay.
In terms of lots we don't own, further things we can do to protect, I mean, there's already pretty heavy restrictions on how you would have to build a single-family lot in these. If you were to change the zoning or to completely take away the right to build on that, that would be a takings
So it would be,
item.
it would be considered a taking, and
I would believe so. We might have to do some more legal research on that, but I think anything you do to deprive someone of the potential to develop on their property would be a takings issue.
Can, Elizabeth mentioned that the residential construction in Tier 2 does not require floodplain compensation. So is there a way we could require both commercial and residential to comply with floodplain compensation in Tier 2?
I don't believe so. I believe that's FEMA regulations.
That's FEMA, okay.
They would
thank
have
you.
to comply with, anything they would need to if they wanted to be
So
removed out
we're
of that.
doing all that we can at this point in time to minimize.
Yes.
Okay.
does anybody have a generous or conservative idea of what fair market value is of these tier 2 lots? Because the assessed value is 1.8 million.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to interject because I think to benefit our time, because we don't have money to purchase all of them, obviously, especially the developed ones, I think we need to prioritize the purchasing. We need to look at that. I would like to ask, once this fund dwindles, how does it get replaced? Is there a plan to replenish it? And if not, do we need to? I mean, same with the sheeted lots and those lots that we own. How do we, if we give away 11 lots to affordable housing, how do we then replenish those lots so we can move forward with those types of things? So it's questions like that that I would rather see that they have still a future for them than trying to figure out how much money it's going to cost, and I already know I don't have the money. So I'd rather see if these are going to continue, these plans will, how they're going to continue to be funded and refilled, replenished. And then later on, you can check to see. But the way it looks like to me right now, the vacant properties, we've got enough money to handle vacant properties to start with. And it's not gonna drain, you're gonna be acquiring more land, square foot wise, than you would by spending a lot of money to buy just one lot with a house. So personally myself, I'd rather prioritize vacant lots before going into developed property.
And that's exactly why I didn't vote for Jessamine, because it was a tier 2 approved property that had a house on it. And we could have used that almost $250,000 to purchase other vacant properties. And, you know, the priority should be the tier 1s, in my opinion, and just leave tier 2 alone.
You have
But-
2 developed properties though on tier 1.
Exactly, and we
So are you
could've-
gonna prioritize those 2 developed properties over the vacant in tier 2? Because the money's gonna be gone before you even get into the vacant properties of tier
Exactly.
2. That's why I think priority needs to be placed on vacant before you start purchasing developed,
Those
whether it's 1 or 2.
those tier 1 lots that have a home on them, how old are those homes? I'm sorry, I didn't look up that. It was just something that I just thought of.
So the tier 2 lots, the
No, tier
improved,
1, ma'am.
I'm sorry, tier 1, the 2 parcels that have structures on them built in 1987 and 1992. I just remind the commission, on May 12th, our land acquisition consultant did have a conversation where she mentioned, very importantly, that we need to have willing sellers. So I know as we're going through this process and having a conversation on how to prioritize, I just want to remind you that we need a willing seller. With the number of letters that we mailed out over a year, there were about 41 letters mailed out. Only about a handful reply came back as far as willing sellers. A few for selling, a couple for swapping, and then other interested owners were wanting to sell their property that was higher than the market value, something that we couldn't offer. So I just wanted you to keep that in the back of your mind as we're talking about prioritizing. Even if you give us new direction to go over the vacant properties, there's not gonna be a lot happening fast. There's not a lot of willing sellers. And we're also gonna pursue the swapping of the properties, but again, even the responses we've received from that, there was less than a handful. So I just want that to be a reminder as well.
Yeah, I personally, I don't see the people that own those 2 homes in the tier 1 selling anytime soon. They're there, they're established, that's their home. They knew what, you know, they've lived through far more floods than we probably even can remember, you know, with their homes being there. But as far as the tier 2, in my opinion, purchasing improved property, obviously I am far against that. It's not beneficial. It's very expensive and there's no point in purchasing improved property in tier 2. And if you go and purchase the tier 2 vacant properties, how many people are gonna really be building in vacant tier 2 with all of the restrictions that are already going on? And to Vice Mayor's point, where's the rest of the money gonna come from? When the funds are depleted, we only have, if I remember correctly, there's, what is it? $200,000 left to purchase. What do you do when that money is gone? Where do you come up with this money?
The money, when it runs out, if there was desire by the commission, consider purchasing additional property, would be coming back again in a project form in a capital improvement project, looking to either use surtax or some other revenue source.
That's the biggest reason why I say use that 288,000 to acquire as much land as possible.
Vacant?
as much land, square footage. And so it's just logical that a vacant property is gonna be less money than a developed property, but it gives you the property. And so to utilize the 288,000, you can either buy maybe 15 lots and have a little left over, or buy a house and it's gone.
Yeah, that's what happened with Jessamine. City manager, is the property on Jessamine, is that property, has that closed yet?
Yes, I signed the documents for that, I believe it was last week.
Thank you. So what are we
To
gonna do
me,
with that?
Jessamine is over and done. There were reasons that I voted, and I stated at that point in time why I voted the way that I did, and thankful that this meeting is happening so priority can be placed. I think there will be some good come of the Jessamine property, I really truly do. Hopefully it will aid in future grants, but from this point forward, I would rather see that 288,000 used for strictly vacant land in Tier 1 or Tier 2.
Do you want to get a consensus, Vice Mayor?
Sure.
So you want to get a consensus to have the remaining, what's the exact dollar amount, city manager?
Well, prioritize
I just want to put the dollar amount based on what's left. What is that?
$288,275.
Ma'am.
Be prioritized placing the vacant properties before developed properties in Tier 1 and Tier 2.
So I have a consensus for the 282,270, I'm sorry, 280.
288,275.
I'm sorry, I wrote it backwards, I apologize. 288,275 balance be prioritized for the vacant properties in Tier 1 or Tier 2 first,
Before developed properties.
before developed properties. Commissioner Hanks? Commissioner Emmerich?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. I would also like to have it be no improved properties be purchased. Because it takes up valuable money that we don't have. The property's already approved. There's really no conservation value. We have to, if we were to destroy the home, we'd have to rip out septic, we'd have to remove fill, that gets into a lot of money. What are we gonna do with a house? So I'd like to see about getting consensus to not even purchase improved property.
At this point, I can't agree with that until we get further down the road, because you may be able to acquire all of those vacants under that 288,000. I don't know. Don't know what the future brings, so I don't want to tie the hands at this point in time. I think prioritizing it handles what needs to be done currently.
Commissioner Hanks?
I would do the same. Prioritizing would be the first step. Once you purchase all the vacant properties, then you can take a look and see where the economy is, see where everything's at. And again, I've never been about hog tying ourselves against anything. The commission at that time, when we move in there, can make the decisions based off of the information they have at that point.
Commissioner Emmerich?
Yeah, I agree with that, because we don't even know what may or may not happen with those properties. A house could burn down and it's still developed, but it could be available at a cheaper cost. So we have no clue what the future's gonna bring. So I would still keep it on the books, looking down the road, not right now.
And I had the same thinking, but I thought of flooding rather than fire.
Right, but, I mean, something could happen.
I just didn't want to jinx nothing.
Yeah, I know, and, it's a developed property now, they're 87 and 92, they're 25 years old already. So we don't know what the future of the house is going to be, Hopefully, no problems, but.
And I hear what you're saying, because I also thought of that. But if something happened to those homes, city manager and staff could also come to us and say, hey, this is in our tier 2, this is an improved property, here's what happened to that property, now the owner is willing to sell. But at this point, based on the first consensus given, if you have, what is it, there's 60 vacant lots that are for sale, but now all of a sudden somebody wants to sell their improved property, then the priority becomes the improved property comes to commission for purchase, even though the vacant property is the priority, because the vacant properties may not be for sale.
Well, that's a good process. I mean, you have a
Right.
priority. They are seeking the vacant properties. If somebody approaches them and say, hey, my house burned down, you know, do you still want this property or whatever? They bring it forward to us as they should. It's, you know, the process is a good process. We then would say, look at it, because their direction was priority of vacant first. So when they bring it to the commission then makes the decision to either say yay or nay. So, I mean, to me, the process, there's no problem with it.
I'd much, as I've already stated, I think that $288,000 should just go for purchasing the vacant properties, but consensuses have been reached, and that part is over. City manager, is that crystal clear for you at this point? Do you need anything else?
As he looks at
Is it-
Carrie.
She's the one that gets to manage this fund. I'm gonna ask her if she's clear on that, or.
I am clear. Something you just mentioned a second ago regarding process and bringing forth. I want to make sure I hear you correctly, being a priority to purchase the vacant properties, I actually do have another improved structure in the hopper, somebody who's willing to sell with a house. So before I go through the work of bringing that to the commission, I do want to know, is that your desire? Because that would be the next one up in line.
And that's exactly where I was going with saying to not purchase improved property and focus on these vacant properties. Because it doesn't sound like that property is damaged, fire, flooded, or anything. It's an improved property just like Jessamy. So we're going to spend the $288,000, which then leaves nothing left to purchase these vacant properties.
Not necessarily, because this is part of the process that we're trying to establish here. They're going out and they're keying on vacant properties. You have to have a willing seller that wants to come up and sell their property. They happen to have an improved property that they have a willing seller on. They bring it to the commission. It's up to the commission that says yes or no.
But they're spending a lot of time, money, and resources to bring it to the commission on an improved property.
And that is why this discussion was asked to come, because previously they went out toward vacant properties, but the individual seeking the property, sending the letters, was seeking, and she spoke it in the last meeting, she was seeking the developed properties. So she was going after them because there was no priority set previously. So this person willing to talk about selling their property was coming from that old way of doing it because it wasn't prioritized.
So what direction do we want to give city manager to move forward with this possible improved property that has a willing seller? Do we want to have staff's time, money, and resources spent to pursue purchasing this improved property, or do we not want to?
We already have appraisals, purchase agreements set up. And just for a minor correction, I know Arlena had mentioned that she did look at improved property. She actually, when we sent out 41 letters to vacant and improved lots, it was what came back to us that she pursued as far as willing sellers. So we have a handful of vacant lot owners that are interested in either selling or swapping their property. And then we had 2 sellers who own homes that were interested in selling their property. One we just closed on, and the other is in the process.
How much was that developed property when you're looking at it, you said work had been done on it. How much was this property valued at?
I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it would use up pretty much
Mhm.
the rest
All
of the
of what
money, and
was
it's
in
gonna
there,
be the
yeah.
same we got, I think, 2 appraisals. I mean, for Jessamine, it was, we ended up closing with the closing costs of, let's see, I think I just had, so,
230 or
yeah, it was
240,000?
200 and
Plus
something.
closing costs.
Personally, myself, I do not want to proceed with that second developed property. I want to go with what the consensus we just made of using the remaining 288,275 for vacant properties first.
That's why I was getting a consensus to not purchase these improved properties at all.
Well, I'd like to close the door on the prior direction because we just set current priority and direction. So it's closing the door, in my opinion, on what was directed previously. And that woman did state that her pretty much marching orders were to go after developed properties. So I want that door shut so that this money can go as far for the square footage, the square yardage of as much of those tiers as possible before it runs out, because we don't have a replenishing plan.
And I think we're saying the same thing, and I am trying to close the door on improved properties.
Well, I want the door closed on that improved property that is
But
in
what
the
if there's
pipeline.
another one that there's 13 improved properties in tier 2, what if they bring another one?
They're supposed to be seeking vacant at this point.
No, it says the priority is vacant tier 1 and tier 2.
Okay, the problem between what you're saying and I'm saying is that they are getting, the real estate people are getting marching orders to go after developed properties. With this priority we just set, their marching orders are to go after vacant properties. There's a difference in the motivation and
Only vacant
intent.
properties?
Yes,
Okay, because
that's what they're to go after. They're not to be going after the developed per our prioritization direction.
May I ask a question to staff?
Go ahead.
In this process from the past to where we're at now, with all the money that's been spent on pursuing this property from getting a willing seller, are you at the point with your expenditures to where you need to bring it to the commission and are ready for an approval or denial on that procedure? Or would you have to go and invest more money before you brought it to us and staff time
Sorry.
for this one that you're talking about now?
It's pretty much ready. I mean, we've gotten to the point where, for the improved property, done the appraisal. I might have to get a legal opinion if we'd have to go back and get another appraisal, which would cost money because it's almost a year old. So legally, I don't know if we can use a year-old appraisal. And then just review of the purchase agreement and then bringing that information back to the commission. Again, just showing the appraisals, the review of the purchase agreement, and having that conversation on the.
And the only reason I'm asking this is because of the process. This is a workshop. This might be something that need to be handled in a regular commission meeting to where they can bring it and it can be either approved or denied on that
Depends on
information.
how far it's in.
Yeah, and I don't wanna waste the staff's time and I don't wanna waste the taxpayers' money without even hearing something. So, yes, it can come up and it can be denied because our priorities are to go for vacant rather developed. But to just say no, it's not fair to staff either. So, and plus we're in a workshop, so I don't know if it really needs to come to the commission or not on a regular agenda item. So that's where I'm at on that. That's what I'm getting at with staff, so. I'd rather see the process done properly than to just say, no, we're not gonna do it right here. Well,
Right.
they invested a lot of time and effort into this too, so we gotta be fair on both sides. That's what I'm looking at.
And I totally understand what you're saying, but by keeping it going, you're using more staff time, more money and stuff in order to bring it back on an agenda, so.
Well, that's why I asked where they were on the process and they'll say they're there, so.
No, she said that the
Gonna have to have
appraiser's a
another
year,
appraiser.
appraisal's a year old, and she has to check to see if it can legally be used.
And I think it's 6 months. You have to,
And
can't be older than 6 months.
if the appraisal has to be redone, I think what staff is looking for is direction to say, yes, continue spending more money and staff time on appraisal processes, et cetera, or do we want to stop?
Well, and if that's the case, then I would be a no. Stop.
Same here,
That's all I'm getting at with this is the process
exactly.
and making sure that we're doing things according to,
City manager, you
The
look
way
like
it's
you
supposed
wanna
to be.
speak, so I'll
Thank you.
let you weigh in.
And no matter where, I mean, an agenda item has not been prepared. We are, even if we're close, there still will be staff resources spent to bring this item forward. I'm hearing from most of you that pretty much you don't want us to invest more money into bringing back the developed or improved lots, whatever you want to call them. We have one right now that we're in the process. It will take some more doing to bring it forward to you all. If you're looking to not do that at all, I would prefer that you just tell us not to bring that to you, and we'll just cut our losses and not invest any more time, because if nothing else, it's gonna have to go to legal for a review, for a purchase, and their time is extremely valuable and limited. So even if we are 95% of the way down the road, there's still more that will have to be done. And if it's just gonna come to you all and you all say no anyway, do us a favor and tell us now.
And Mayor, more than likely, unless it comes back at $5,000,
Yeah.
or whatever the undeveloped property is, my answer is probably going to be no based off of where I'm at today. So I don't see a point.
So let's just, for the record and clarity for the city clerk and for the minutes, to stop the process of this improved property that has the willing seller. I don't know what property it is, so I don't know how to refer to it in this consensus, but whatever that property is that Assistant City Manager is referring to stop that process from coming to commission. Commissioner Hanks?
Yes.
Vice Mayor? Definitely a yes, and Commissioner Emmerich?
yes.
All right. City Clerk, could you go back to the consensus, because I don't think it's very clear, because I heard vacant property as the priority in Tier 1 and Tier 2 before improved property. That one that we had a 4-0 where it started with the 288,275.
There was consensus to have the remaining $288,275 be prioritized, placing the vacant properties before developed properties in Tier 1 and Tier 2.
Thank you. So when I hear that, I'm hearing they are going to continue, if they have improved property, willing seller to come to commission. And that's why I was trying to get the consensus to remove the improved property and just focus on vacant.
And Mayor, I think it was very clear, because as we just did this, what we just did just now is exactly what I think the rest of us were talking about. If in the future this comes back, let the commission look at it according to that, not hog tie our future commission based off of anything that we're making right now. If it comes to them because somebody approached staff, then let them make that determination at that point. And I think that's the way I understood the commission say it. And I feel like it was clear.
And I agree with the consensus, but we just basically undid the consensus by telling them to stop spending time and money on the improved properties. So we
That's
just,
exactly, well, we
with
just
that
validated
one
it.
property.
We validated
Validated
our
it.
consensus.
Yeah.
That was the old direction, and they now have a prioritized new direction. We closed the door on the old, we're going forward looking at vacant properties. So they're not gonna be sending letters to develop properties, they're gonna be sending letters and pursuing vacant properties.
Okay, and I agree with all of that, but because the consensus says before improved properties, I just want to make sure it's crystal clear that we're not saying to bring us improved properties.
We're clear on that.
Okay, I hear ambiguity, and that's why I wanted to make sure it's.
Everything that's just been said.
Mayor, I think you're
I'm
just
clear
trying
on.
to change the answer. Everybody's
not.
clear except for you. And this is what we deal with on a regular basis. You can ask the question 100 times, it's going to remain the same. Everybody here except for you is crystal clear.
Okay, well, then we will,
We're just dragging this on.
well, when I hear improved properties in a consensus, I want to make sure it's crystal clear for the city manager. And now that I have his confirmation that he understands that he's not bringing improved properties, I'm fine.
He said he was crystal more than once and you kept on.
The difference is whether the door is completely shut or partially open is what the discrepancy is. And the majority stated that they wanted the door cracked open in case there's a fire, there's a flood or something, and these properties lose the value, and they're then willing to sell, so they come forward to us. So if that door is cracked partially open, you can entertain that. But if it's completely closed to no developed or improved properties, their hands are tied at that point. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
No, ma'am.
City manager, do you need any other commission direction or any clarifications on anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Assistant city manager, everything good?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any public comment on this item?
There is not.
Nothing? Alrighty, so it is now 10:31 and we are adjourned.